HiSec Buyback offers a 90% GDA anywhere in HiSec. Simply go to hisec.evebuyback.com, appraise your items, create a contract, and get paid quickly.
All right, good day all. It is January 23rd, and I am Nick Bison, and I'm here with CSM 17, Kenneth Feld, and we're going to talk a little industry today. Kenneth's been asked the same question repeatedly by a lot of players, especially the newer ones. How do I make ISK? How do I look at stuff? So Kenneth wants to cover a little bit of that, and we'll kind of ramble around. Kenneth, what do you got, brother? Oh, could you hear me? Kenneth, are you with me? Okay, seem to have a little bit of an issue with the voice right now. Kenneth, There you go. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you.
All right. Yeah, basically I told everybody that, you're here with me, and we're going to look at one of the more asked questions you get is, as a newer player or not, how do I look at this market? How do I make this? How do I decide what the heck I want to do?
Yeah, that's definitely one of the questions you get asked most, whether it be in emails in game, DMs on Discord, or the various industry channels in Discord. And the problem is, as you well know, there is no one right answer. And much like, what ship's the best ship to fly, that's the one that you can afford to lose, that may change depending on who you are, where you are, and what you have access to. So we're going to kind of look at a few things over the next hour or so, or till we get tired and have to take an afternoon nap, because we're both not young. We're going to kind of look at different things and things that you can look at and things that you have to kind of take into consideration to build some things. And this may be a little out of the box from what a lot of people were thinking, but it's the way I got started. And I think it's kind of the way that you sort of pivoted to when the new industry changes came out. It may be different items, but you definitely pivoted from making ships to making parts. And that has always been extremely lucrative if you hit the right niches. And that's kind of some of the things I was planning on talking about today.
All right, and that's pretty accurate. When we were talking about earlier, when the whole scarcity part hit, my main focus at that time was in the Orca and Freighter line, because I could do that in HiSec all not by myself, but in a small group. The challenges after the changes, not just the scarcity, but the building requirements, kind of made that no longer a profitable deal. So yeah, had to research a bit, switch gears, figure out what was going to work for not just what I wanted to do, but the time I had to play. So, yep, we all got to adapt.
Okay, so taking that into consideration, that the Tech 1 market is absolutely a dogfight. You are not going to get anywhere in the Tech 1 market easily. Ammo would probably be what I would tell you, maybe drones, but even then, it is absolutely cutthroat. And if you build 10,000 drones and make 4 ISK each after the market taxes and everything, I would think you'd be doing a good job. There's just too many people too far ahead of you with too many stockpiles that didn't pay anywhere near the mineral price that there is now for this stuff, and they're just blowing them out.
One of the things, let me interrupt real quick. One of the deciding factors I made, because I was looking at drones initially based off you and mine's earlier conversations over a year ago, and I pretty much nixed any item that the rat would drop to me, and the rats drop drones. Well, there goes your profit margin.
Yeah, that's a good point. I specifically meant Tech 2 drones, but that's still beside the point. And that, when you build Tech 2 drones, the fact they drop is actually a good thing, because then instead of building the Tech 1 to build the Tech 2, you can buy the Tech 1. And we're going to talk about that when we talk about the Purifier in a little bit, because there's some definite breakpoints in there where you can do better by buying the Tech 1 ship to build the Tech 2 instead of building it yourself, depending on where you are physically building it. Now, one thing about Tech 2, the skill requirements are slightly more. It's not the end of the world for the parts. Now, you want to start building the ships or inventing them, yeah, then you're going to start getting into, hey, I need to train this up. I need to train this up. And all I did is I trained, I think it was about a week training time, and then I could build the parts. While I was building the parts and making good ISK building the parts, I finished the train to where I can build the ships. Then once I could start building the parts and building the ships, I was selling my excess parts and the ships, making more money, and it just snowballed from there. So then I went from purifiers over to hounds, and I don't think I ever made any of the Caldari ones. I started with the Caldari expedition ships. Either way, they're all frigates. They build real easy, they invent real easy, and you don't have a lot of capital costs, right? Initially, the amount of capital that you need to buy the parts to build these is in the realm of what most people in the game can absorb pretty easily. And then it's just a matter of how fast can I turn this over. And someone mentioned something yesterday. I think it was yesterday during the stream. He was talking about making ISK and selling things in volume versus selling things that turn over slow. And I would much rather have 10,000 things that I make 100 ISK on and make a million ISK rather than one thing that I have to wait 3 weeks to sell to make that million ISK, right? It's just the turnover is what keeps you going and that kind of stuff. Making one thing and letting it sit on the market and everyone dropping their price below you is just disheartening to a certain degree. So the things we're going to talk about today are generally all high turnover items. We're sticking with the Amar race. However, every single one of these blueprints that we're going to look at, there's a Mimitar version, a Galente version, and a Caldari version of them. They're named a little bit different, but they all fill the exact same role, and they're all used in the same way. So, like this laser focusing crystal that we're going to talk about is what's used to make Amar guns. The thermonuclear device is what's used to make the Mimitar guns. Superconductor rails and particle acceleration unit are the Caldari and the Galente one, and they're used to build those guns. But none of those are used to build the ships. So there's different parts for different aspects, and you kind of have to know which one for which, and we'll talk about that too. But depending on how you want to look at it and the turnover, the volume per day in JITA is really what can drive your profit if there's a much higher turnover. And you'll see on some of these the weekends it spikes quite a bit. So if you can put on a 5-day or 6-day build on Sunday, pull your stuff out on Friday, get it to JITA before the weekend rush, you stand a lot better chance. Now there is a little more competition, but you stand a chance of selling it. And that's the more important point. If you make 8% instead of 9%, but you sold it, you got your ISK back out of it, you got your profit, and now you can turn it over into the next item.
Now you had mentioned, getting to JITA before the weekend to hit the rush. On the other markets, what I've noticed is there's lazy people like me. I'll pay extra to not have to go to JITA, and I call that the convenience fee. So I'm going to head over to Ren's or I'm going to go to Do-Dixie. I generally don't go to Amar very often, but I like to avoid JITA just because I'm an idiot. But it works for me.
Well, no, and that works two ways, because if all the parts that you have to buy to build your ship cost you a little bit more, the amount that the ship costs you to build is a little bit higher. But if you can pass on that convenience tax when you sell the ship, you've still made the same amount of ISK. You've still put in the same amount, or you probably put in a little bit less work because you didn't have to go all the way to JITA to get the stuff. And as long as you can pass that on and continue to make ISK, more power to you. Save yourself some trouble and effort and continue on with life.
And that helps, kind of the way I look at it, that helps the other markets and the other players. Because, yeah,
Sure, absolutely.
that convenience fee, there's a lot of us that will gladly pay it.
Yeah. Oh, I love the people that pay convenience fees. They're my favorite customers. And also too, like a lot of the, our sponsor High Sec BiPAC for this thing, I'm kind of the same thing but different. People will contact me and say, hey, I mined all this stuff. It's in this station or this station. I don't have any way to get it to Jita. Do you want it? And I'll say, yep, I'll take it all. And we settle on a price that's fair, but it definitely leans my way a little bit. And I send a boatload of jump freighters over there and pile all that stuff in, and away I go. And they got their ISK, I got my stuff. Everybody's happy.
Yeah, and that's a win-win on both sides. If you make those little connections here and there for folks that don't want to move it.
And more importantly, I did not pay any tax because it was a direct contract.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, well, let's get into the first steps you wanted to look at on this. The finding the item that you want to work on.
Right. Yeah. So if you want to put my screen up here so people can see.
It is up.
Oh, okay. So there's a few blueprints that I have on the screen. Like I said, it's all the Amar ones. A couple of things we're going to talk about first is the laser focusing crystals. They're not used in ship production, but they are used to build the guns. So I'm just going to look at I'm in perimeter right now, so Jita market and perimeter market will come up. So there's the market for the focusing crystals. And as you can see, there's only, 200,000 or so available on the market. So it's fairly, I would say, low volume of parts on the market. But now if we go to the tables and you look, on Sunday there was 88,000 sold, and on Saturday there was 56,000 sold. So that's what, 130, 145,000 of these were sold over the weekend. And if you look, the low was 25.6, the high was 26.5, and the average was about 25.7, 26.5 for both days. So they're not selling for buy prices. Very few are getting dumped to buy orders. Most of them are going to sell orders. That's important to know because that's 10% on this particular item. It's about a 10 to 15% differential there. So, one, the amount that's on the market is only about 30% more than what was sold the past 2 days. They're selling for sell price. Those are two very important factors to look at. So as you can see, oh, my mic key is making the thing move, but buy price is 22.4, sell price is 25.4. Okay, so now we found an item that's fairly high volume. It sells almost the total amount of Jita volume every weekend. Now, I didn't look at this at Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Before I built these for real, I would probably look at it over the weekend and see how much competition I would have. Does someone drop 100,000 units on Friday or Saturday type thing? So you kind of want to scope out your competition here. But nevertheless, this is still a fairly high volume item for how many there are on the market at a given time. Now, your next question is, okay, so it's high volume, it sells for sell price. Can I make them cheaper than what they're selling for? So I'm going to switch screens here real quick.
Yeah, this is always the fun part. Switching screens. We'll see how that works out for us. We've been fighting with it. Oh, perfect.
Okay, I'm just waiting, make sure it comes up on Twitch.
Yep, came up just fine.
Okay, so I can see it. So if you look, oh, that's Purifier. Okay, so here's the laser focusing crystals. All I did was just put it into Lazy Blacksmith. I like Lazy Blacksmith. If you go back and look at the other episodes, we talked about all the online tools. Lazy Blacksmith is the one that I like for this one in particular, but so that's what we're gonna use for this one. Now, right now it's kind of set up for me, so let me change it to high sec. Okay, so it's now set for high sec ME10 TE20. This bottom stuff down here for all these skills, all they affect for the calculations is the time. They don't affect how much it costs. It may affect the install price slightly. So I typically don't mess with them because it's too much time to move that slider every time. But for the sake of this, I'll go ahead and set them. And we'll start with 10,000 runs just to give us a good round number there. Okay, so that runs per job. You need, if you're going to use a blueprint, a BPO, you need to set that to whatever your runs are. That way it calculates your run bonuses correctly. If you're going to use blueprint copies to build these, and say you have 5 2,000 run blueprint copies, you would set that at 2,000 because you would be putting in 5 jobs for 2,000 each. And we'll look at how that changes the price here in a minute. Okay, so we have all of our data in. We're in Asadio, we're in Perimeter, we're in HiSec, and there's Tech One rigs. Okay, so now we'll go to the material summary. So this tells you exactly how much of each of this product you would need. And yeah, so you can multiply that, take it to your clipboard, just go to JITA and put it in your multi-buy, and it will all list out. And you can just hit the button to buy it on sell orders, or you can, I use it just kind of as a shopping list to put the buy orders up for stuff, but that's up to you. Okay, so your total volume for all this stuff will be 23,114 cubic meters. So this will fit in any Tech One hauler pretty easily. Even a low skilled player without the bonuses should still be able to find Tech One haulers so that this fits in with no problem. And your build time is 4 days, 19 hours, 45 minutes. That's important because remember we talked about the putting them in on Sunday and getting them out by Friday. When I'm doing this kind of stuff, limit the build time to 5, maybe 6 days. That way the stuff's out ready to be sold. And sometimes, the first one to market, what's that phrase about the early bird gets the worm type thing? Yeah, so this would apply. Now we're going to move on to the pricing. So as you can see here, your total cost of materials is basically 170 million. Installation costs would be about 16 million, and this is in Perimeter with their index of God only knows what. Your unit cost for these will be 18,650. Okay, so that is how much it costs you per unit for that 10,000 to make them. If they sell for 25.5, you will end up, well, it doesn't give you your total, but your margin is 68 million. So you've spent 196 million to put this, or 186 million, sorry, 186 million to buy the parts and install the job. And you're going to be able to sell that for 68 million ISK more than what you bought the materials for and the install cost. Your profit margin of 27%. That is quite good for Eve. I see you're turning your head a lot. Are you following along, or you
Oh yeah, yeah. I'm
along the way?
No, I was following along. I was also turning my head, reading chat. Some of the folks are saying it's hard to read the numbers that we're pushing up due to, I don't know if it's stream quality or what version we're putting up, or if it's just size.
Well, let me see something. See if that helps the size.
Hey, Symbiotis, when you see that the size change, tell me if that looks better, man. Aha, J Bear says much better, says it's perfect now. Yeah, I think with it at full screen, it was kind of small for folks to keep track of.
Okay, yeah, I'm using 4K screens too, so stuff gets small. Even my old eyes have a hard time seeing it. Okay, so there you go. Can you see and follow along a little bit better now?
Yeah, reporting in, that is much better.
Okay, so I mean, But essentially, we're over as far as talking about this. But that's kind of the important point. Now, something that we're going to do here in a second, and we're going to look at the purifier. So I'm going to shift over to Fuzzworks because I like the way that that does one certain thing. And we're going to look at a purifier, and then we're going to look at how many of certain things we need and go from there.
You had mentioned there might be a difference. In this case, you're using a BPO making 10,000 runs versus 5 BPCs, and how that might affect the bottom line.
Okay, so just went back to the first screen. I plugged in that 2,000 runs per job. Thank you for reminding me. And now we're going to go back to pricing. So it changed it about 200,000 ISK. So in this case, for what we're doing, it's relatively minor. Once you get into the bigger stuff, it matters. Let me see if it even changed anything a little bit. So that didn't change because that's a floor. 96. Okay, so out of all of that, we used one more tungsten carbide per run. So, 165 ISK is times 5 is all it changed us. So, less than 1,000 ISK. But when you're doing this and you're building dreads and stuff, it could change it significantly. In this case, not so much. Okay, so here is a purifier.
Oh, and if you can, increase the size again, please. Awesome.
So this is a purifier, and this is in Fuzzworks, by the way. So same thing. We're set up in an engineering complex, high sec. It's a medium this time, so a rate in Marassi. It's one jump on the other side of JITA. So if you look at the final numbers here, you build one of these, you make 386,000 ISK, and that's for a very small, that's 15 hours of build time. Okay, so your ISK per hour is 26,000 ISK. Okay, so it's pretty small. But if you take this and we type in perimeter up here, and we change it to a Saudi, now all of a sudden we've lost 200,000 in order to make this ship. However, this is if we buy everything off the market. And I haven't looked at these prices to tell whether they're sell price or buy price. And I'm not sure that you can change it in here.
Okay, you just changed from a medium to an extra large structure, and the cost and location and the cost changed that much?
Yes, because Marassi has a very low cost index. And if you look, the actual amount of the job didn't change. So we'll look at the job material cost here is 19.1 million, but the install price is 1.7 million. Okay, so I'll go back and do it the other way and we can look at it. So the 19.1 million is still the job material cost. The amount for a frigate, the amount that you're going to get going from a rate to a Saudio, that extra ME bonus is literally a pittance. It's nothing. It's probably less than 100,000 ISK. Okay, but going from perimeter with a very high index to someplace that doesn't have a high index, the install price goes from 1.7 million to 1.1 million or 1.2 million. But that's the difference between a 386,000 ISK profit or 100 and some odd thousand ISK deficit, right? That's your entire profit margin right there is install cost. And that's what we were talking about in the last episode. And this is a prime example of exactly that. Where you build matters.
That is huge, yeah, because perimeter obviously very busy and used quite a bit. So finding that little smaller location with a low index, or at least a lower index, can definitely save you quite a few bucks.
Yes, definitely. So now a couple of things we're going to look at here. And I did not pre-look at these, so I'm not sure how the answer is going to turn out. But another fairly high volume item is these tungsten chloride armor plates. Every Tech 2 ship needs these armor plates, but they're also used to build the plates for ships. So if you build the 16 millimeter plates or the 25,000 millimeter plates for capitals and stuff, they all use these as input. So, or for the Tech 2 versions, I should say. So we'll look at these. So for 300 of them, or basically 286 after your ME bonuses, 286 of them, it's going to cost a little over 3 million ISK. Okay. So I'm going to go back to the last calculator and we're going to plug these in.
It also might be handy. Notice down there that you have a manufacturing TE implant in. Let folks know what that is.
Okay, that's strictly for speed. That gives you 4% faster build speed on all of your items. Yeah, let me take that out because that's not realistic for newer players. Okay, so that's taken out. So your total runtime for this job in high sec, in perimeter, in the Sadio would only be 35 minutes to make 286 of these to build a purifier. But you can build these for essentially what, 2.8, doesn't give you the total cost, does it now? So 2.83, 2.84. So 2.84 million, you can build these yourself. Now, if we go back to the purifier, to buy them costs 3 million. So that's 150,000 ISK more profit that you get for 35 minutes of work, right? So this is the kind of stuff that you have to go through. Now, you don't have to go through this detailed every single time, but it does help to go through it initially. Now, the flip side of that is, yeah, you can build the purifier for 150,000 is cheaper, and that's building them in perimeter. Now, if you go look at, we'll go back and we'll look at Marassi again and see what the difference is there. Okay, so that takes you down to 2.78 million. So it's not a terrible change there because this is overall a lower value item, right? So it's generally not worth it. If you can save the ISK on the parts, I usually suck it up and just build the ship in the higher index place because the parts is what kills you over time for the pricing. Okay. So I'm going to shift it back to perimeter for the sake of this argument. So if you look, that's overall a 5.67% margin if you were just to build these and sell them. Okay. That still for Eve is not terrible, but now we're going to crank it up a little bit, just like we did with the laser crystals. This is used for all the ships and a few other items. So we're gonna crank this one up a little bit and see if we can change the numbers. Okay, so if we make 60,000 of these, and we're at 5 days, 35 minutes. Remember that magic 5-day thing that we want to stick around? Okay, now we'll look at the price. So now this costs you a little bit more ISK. You're into it for $500 million or almost 600 million, right? But you don't have to make all 60,000 of them at the same time. You know, I'm just using this, but you make 36 million ISK on that. That doesn't sound great. Actually, it sounds pretty bad. But when we go back, and I'm going to show you the game again, I don't know if my screen will swap. We'll have to see if my screen will swap. But we look at the volume on these. The volume, I'm pretty sure, is going to be higher than even the lens crystals. And as you said, you may be able to make some deals with some guys who build Tech 2. Hey, I'll build you this, build you that type thing, and kind of shift how much ISK you make along the way. So I'm going to shift back to the game real quick.
All right, got that. And by the way, Shonadar, welcome into the chat.
Did it change or no?
Not yet. We're still showing the minimized, paused. And for the folks in the audience, if you've got, questions, feel free to pop them in there. And Kenneth can answer them because I probably can't. All right, it's up now. I'm not sure what we can do about the size on this at all.
Yeah, the game, probably not much we can do about the size. But as you can see, over the weekend, 225,000 were sold on Sunday, 220,000 were sold on Saturday. Thursday, 350,000 were sold. 97,000 were sold on Friday. And, most days you're well over 100,000. I don't know what happened on the 10th. 500,000 were sold on the 10th. And if you look at these prices again, for the most part, these are all sell prices. Because if you look at the buy price is down 9,700 and there's very few buy orders. So it's all people just, I need them now, click, give me bacon, thank you very much. And you go on about your life with a nice little profit there.
And because of, this is obviously a high volume item, just because of all the different things that require it. It's not just, a feeder for 1 or 2 or 5 items. It's for a whole lot.
Yeah, and we can show that here. So this is all the different things. If you go to show info on an item and you click on the industry tab, it lists every blueprint in the game that this is used for.
So anybody wanting to build any of that needs them.
Correct. Fuzzworks has a similar feature. You can go to their item lookup and type in an item, and it lists everything in the game that item is used for. The other thing along these same lines, the reactor unit and the fusion thruster, they are used for drones a lot. So we'll just take a look at them real quick. So if you look here, it's used for all the ships, obviously, but all these stand-up drones right here, and yeah, the Amitat, those are actually fighter bombers, but
we lost your stream there. Give me a second. There we go. It's back.
Okay. Yeah, and Tosis Lynx, more fighters, still even more fighters here. Yeah, Templars, yeah, so mostly fighters. Anyway, it's used for those. However, this uses some moon goo that is fairly expensive. So and they're low volume. It doesn't use a ton of this stuff. So this one is one that kind of looks good on paper sometimes, but I generally tell people to stay away from this one.
Probably because the expensive moon goo offsets profit a lot.
Well, and the amount that you have to outlay out front is quite bad. So that would be more for second or third tier type. Once you kind of get your foot in the door with this stuff and you're building this stuff, then you want to, okay, I want to branch out a little bit. Then maybe you can start in on those. The same thing, this is the fusion thruster. They're used for all the ships, obviously, plus the same thing with the fighters. So they do have a fairly high turnover. We'll look at the turnover here. So there's the market details. You notice there's not a ton of buy orders again. And this one, the buy order to sell order differential is about 20%. That is quite large for something that has this much volume. So if you look just real quick in JITA, there's 35, 60, 70, 90, 100, 120, 135,000 units available in JITA total. And they're selling, Friday it didn't sell any. Saturday and Sunday, 2,200, 5,800, so about 8,000. The weekend before was about 10,000. So this item, you don't build nearly as many as the armor plates and that kind of stuff, but it is, for what it is in the build time, it is still a high volume item and people use it quite a bit. Yeah, you look on the 3rd, someone bought 52,000 of them, 13,000 the day before. So you never know when someone's going to come in and say, oh, I need to build Umpty Squat and just buy a bunch of them. but this is used for all the ships as well. So that's another one that's decent, and it doesn't cost a lot of IS to get into this one. This one uses relatively minor materials, but it's another good one to look at.
Yeah, in chat, Profisto mentions, I guess he's done this. In building a Paladin, you need about 35,000 of them.
Yep, definitely. Yeah, and it's just, how often does someone that is building a Paladin come by and go to Jita and just say, yes, push button, give me bacon. And that could be your day. Framing this more towards the frigate, and all this is building up to building that purifier yourself. However, you can only build so many purifiers, but these parts you can build much more than that. So this is kind of about selling the excess parts as well as building your purifiers. So I guess we should probably get into the actual purifier itself. I actually have a purifier blueprint, so we'll look at this in game real quick. Oh, it doesn't have a public. Shoot, I've never built like this. Where do you find public?
That should be right. All facilities.
Oh, there we go. Okay, so got it. Okay, there we go. So there's where we are. There we go. Good Lord, that was painful. Sorry about that. You think I built shit, but I haven't built from my personal hangar in a public station quite a while. Okay, so this is where this blueprint is right now. This is an ME4. I had ME2 on the thing because most of mine will be 2. And all that can change based on what decryptor they use when they did the invention. I just bought this one off the market in Jita because I didn't have one just to show for this. But a couple things, PI and Mercoxit, those are both used for all ship builds. And then these are the parts that we're talking about right here. Okay. So you can tell I don't have any of them, obviously. This is a 2-run blueprint. So we'll look, let me see if we even get a run bonus. So how many is this? This is 280. If we go to 2 at a time, it goes from 280 to 559. So we save 1 entire armor plate in run bonuses. Yeah, it doesn't sound like much, but it's better than nothing. No, one thing about this, and back to the Tech 1 thing we were talking about, you notice there's 1 Inquisitor here because you have to build the Tech 1 ship in order to build the Tech 2 ship. Tech 1 is cutthroat, and I'm going to look at the build cost difference in the ship right now just to show you. Oh crap, I got to change screens again. Pray for me.
Fingers crossed. We're still looking at the station. While you're pulling that up, one of the questions come up in chat from Hiram. Said battleship production changes have been in place for a while. Has that impacted the rest of the P2 production?
Yes and no. I've still built a ton of Redeemers in the past couple weeks. The Neuralink communicator conduit things, whatever it takes to build those now, that doesn't use a ton of moon goo. It uses gas mostly. So it's more of an exercise in the gas reactions, the new hybrid reactions and that kind of stuff than it is in moon goo.
It's more of a gas market, or a gas, than P2, because P2's dropped a bit on requirement from what I recall.
Yeah, the most of that stuff is P0 and P1, and that really hasn't affected much. The biggest thing there, especially for the smaller producers, is the hauling of the P0 and P1. For its value, the size is really large. I've begged CCP multiple times, and a lot of the other CSM as well, to look at PI, how it's used, the quantities and the volume and this kind of stuff. And if you look at the schedule for, maybe I ought to look at that real quick. Hold on, before I say something. Let me see what he put out in public.
While Kenneth's looking that up, for all you folks that were doing a lot of P2 on the planet mining. Go ahead and stay out of that market. I am currently making a killing and enjoying it. So if you don't want to, it's tedious. It's a lot of clicks. You may not like it. But reality is I've been making good profit off of it. Just keep an eye out. If you want, build in there, and it's not a bad deal.
Okay, yeah. So they did put advanced industry topics on the docket for what we're going to talk about, and we are going to address how the PI is used and this kind of stuff, and what we can do to alleviate some of the pain for newer members. Okay, so now we're looking at the blueprint, and I'm going to put in the Inquisitor. Okay, so if we look, the Inquisitor is going to be approximately 410 or 440,000 to build, but you can buy them for 400. So they're currently selling for 10% less than you can build them for in perimeter. Now, if you change this to a medium in Marassi, you still can't build them for less than you can buy them in Jita. So, and if you put up buy orders, you can even get them for less than that. So if you are building these or want to build these, remember, what was our total profit margin on the purifier? It was only 386,000 ISK, right? If you can end up getting this ship for, I don't want to go back to the game because the whole screen share thing, but if you can get this for like 350 on buy orders, you can save yourself a considerable amount of ISK, which will then transition into more profit. Now, mind you, this is all in Jita too. If you can source some of the stuff in the outer areas, like what you were talking about, Dodixie and this kind of stuff, if you can source a few of these things that might be super cheap in Jita, combine that with some of your convenience items, and then resell, you could actually do quite well on the back end with this stuff. But again, it's knowing your market, knowing what you can pay for things, knowing how much it takes you to build it. And there's no way, I mean, I'd need an hour and a half session with every single person to go over what it takes to do this to make it right for you, right? So the idea about this is teaching the tools, kind of what to look for, this kind of stuff, and then unfortunately, time to kick you out of the nest.
You get a lot of it is, and you and I think we talked about it beforehand. It's finding what works for you with your time available, because that's one of my biggest things is how much time I have to play and what I like to do, and that's how I focused in on what I like. So everybody's going to be a little bit different.
Oh yeah, pre-Fisto, yeah, you're right. I was making nightmares too, so that's where all the gas came in. Still trying to keep track of all that stuff because I was making redeemers and nightmares all at the same time. So, but either way, it's spit in the ocean. It didn't change anything. Yeah, the one reaction formula for I think it's the communicators that takes up like the entire screen. It took the Photon UI team like a month to separate all them out because they were all over top of each other and overlapping. I would really, really, really like to simplify that. I don't know how much luck I'm going to have doing that, but that would be nice to try and simplify it to a certain degree.
Well, all right. So what's left on building this bad boy?
That's pretty much it, other than pressing the build button. We talked about several of the inputs. We talked about the high volume, and the other thing that most people don't look at is whether that volume sells at sell price or buy price. And then it's just a matter of putting the parts together and building the ship. Like I said, we're not going to get into invention. Invention will kind of be its own whole show because that's a whole different crapshoot there. Oh, one thing I do want to talk about real quick is the skills. We talked about the skills briefly in the beginning. I'm going to switch back to the game if I can here and see if we can look at the skills real quick.
Jeopardy music is now playing. All right, we got it.
Okay, good. So
Well,
these
still coming
items.
up. Hold on. God darn it. All right. It's not up yet.
Oh,
Well, while we're awaiting that to come up, now you're flying out to Iceland pretty soon, from what I recall.
correct. Yeah, I'm flying out Friday. Get there Saturday morning.
This will be your last summit because you can't run anymore. Is that
That
accurate?
is correct. That's the reason that we're doing these shows now. I always wanted to do these shows, but I was compromised significantly by being on the CSM, and I talked about this a lot. That the industry changes were a lot of dominoes. So once the domino fell and everybody was feeling the pain of that domino, I already knew what the next domino and the next domino that were coming. So doing these shows in the middle of that didn't make much sense because
Things were
one,
changing.
yeah, I knew things were changing. Two, I didn't want to accidentally say, "Oh yeah, but don't worry about that because that's going to change in 2 months." You know, so now the shackles are off to a certain degree. I don't think things are going to change massively. I mean, we're still going to push for tweaks at the summit, but that's not going to change a lot of the underlying stuff. So that's why you and I sat down and we started trying to do these things. Oh yeah, and technical difficulties. That ought to be the name of this show. It's technical
Go, yeah.
difficulties.
Go ahead and kill that share you were trying and give it 5 seconds and try it again. Maybe that'll clear it up some. All
That
right.
get it?
1 second. Success!
Maybe. Okay. Good deal. So the requirements for this really are laser physics 3. Nope. Did it come up? Okay, yeah, there it goes. So it's laser physics 3. The science 5, power grid management 5, you probably should already have or be close to it. Either way, those are level 1 skills, so they're not that bad. Laser physics 3 is a level 5 skill, but you only have to train it to 3, which is probably 2 days. So the training requirements for these are not end of the world stuff. They're actually pretty, for the amount of IS that you can make off of them, they're a pretty decent train. It's
Well,
not that
like you
bad at
said,
all.
them being, level 1 or 2 skills, you're not looking at a great long train time either.
Correct. This one doesn't have. Okay, let me see if I can find one with a research.
What you looking
Okay.
for?
So I got it. I got the Tranquility Research Lab came up. So one thing I wanted to talk about, you buy these blueprints and they're 0, 0. To train them all the way up to 10, me, is only a day. So to go from 0 ME all the way to 10 only takes 1 day. Okay. So you can buy each one of these. I think they're a couple million each for the blueprint. And now the Amar ones are quite expensive in JITA because people buy them from Amar and bring them in and jack the price up. So you can either go to Amar and buy them a little bit cheaper, or you can typically get a pack of all of these together and they'll all be pre-researched for you. And they're about 150 million, somewhere around there. But there's only like 8 or 9 blueprints. So you're paying almost 20 million a piece for these things when in reality, if you only want a couple to get started, you can buy a couple. You're out 5, maybe 10 million if you want to buy a bunch of them. And then to train them from ME0 to ME10 takes 1 day and 96,000 ISK. So it's literally just not worth it to buy those off contracts unless you just, hey, I got to have them now. I want to start building yesterday type thing. But that's the entire convenience factor that you're talking about. These blueprints are extremely easy to research and build from.
And
So
we're gonna hit the research and the blueprint through the invention on the next show, probably.
yeah, we can probably throw that in with invention. Just kind of did this one first because I'm getting so many questions about this. And most of the people that are asking these questions understand what research is. So if you don't, yeah, let's see, next weekend I'll be in Iceland. The weekend after that, I'll get home Sunday. So maybe in 2 weeks, if we have time on Monday, we can do the next show.
All right, I'll put that in. That would be 6th of February.
Correct. Yep. So, and that'll be invention and research. We can go over that in that show. But the point is, they're very easy to research yourself, and the requirements for it are pretty much nothing, if I remember. Yeah, Metallurgy 5. So, if you're gonna do anything in the industry world, Science 5, Metallurgy 5, and Industry 5 are the three that you kind of need to get started, because one's ME, one's TE, and one's blueprint copy speed. Those three you kind of need to get started across the board. But you can still train them as you go. If you don't have Metallurgy 5 to do these, you can still buy the singles rather than the whole pack. It'll cost you a little bit more to get started, but it's just a little bit longer until you pay off the blueprint.
All right. Anything else on your hit list for today?
No, I think that was it. I know that you had a few things that you wanted to talk about as far as things that changed for you when the industry and scarcity stuff hit. If you want to kind of touch on those, and because that's quite a bit different industry than this, because this was kind of one little niche thing. Just remember, we only talked about Amar, though. This same exact stuff applies for Caldari, Mimitar, and Galenti, and to a certain extent, Triglavian. However, those prices are still in crazy town. So I would stick with the 4 empires to get started. And then if you want to go to crazy town, you can hop on that bus all you want.
For the folks that have been playing for a bit, you all know the quote scarcity hit, changes to industry hit, and that all happened shortly after I moved back to HiSec. So I had my little niche, and Kenneth and I were talking about earlier, was Orca and freighter builds for the most part. And that came to a screeching halt because remember, the moon changes, could no longer get everything I needed in one shot. Blueprint changed, now we have new components. What that turned into is I had to step back and look at how me and the folks I play with, how are we making our money? And we had to completely change it. I haven't built an Orca since that weekend prior when everybody did the massive build out of everything they had left before the changes. One of the things I looked at, well, a couple of the things. PI can be very profitable. Specifically, what I was doing was toward the fuel blocks, and what's needed for that. That works out well for a lot of folks. You can still, the ore ships, even the T1s, there is a profit margin still on them. So, looking at stuff like that is still quite valuable. And then the where you sell. We joke about the convenience fee, but that's very accurate. A lot of folks, based on the time they have to play and just their own personality, I don't want to make the 16 jumps to Jita or the 15 jumps over to Heck. I'll just grab it in Amar, or I'll grab it in Dodixie, and I'll pay a little bit more. I can make a profit off of that, finding what those items are and tossing them up there. So it all can be done. Oh. But that's just one of the biggest changes I had was, refocus how I want to get it done. I can see Kenneth reading chat. Anything good over there?
No, I think we're not too many questions. So if you don't have anything else, we're a little over an hour. So this is probably a good time to wrap this one up and I'll start making notes for 2 weeks from now.
Sounds good. Hey, everybody in chat, appreciate y'all stopping by. And once again, CSM Kenneth Feld, and this is heading up to Iceland for his first and last summit, because they obviously were canceled the last couple of times. And, it's been great having him as our indie-flavored CSM. And I'm Nick Bison, and we're talking in stations, and thanks so much for coming by.